Shabbat Shalom. On this Shabbat, I want to deal with balancing the scales and also that he chastens those he loves. So let's get at it. Abiyah, thank you for this Shabbat. Thank you for this opportunity to bring forth a message. May edification and balance be the goal attained. That is my mission. That is my purpose. Let that be manifest and that your will be done on earth as is in the Shamayim. Yada Yahuwah. Okay, let's get going. So I'm gonna go ahead and share some foundational texts and from the scriptures and from the Brit Hadashah, and let's go. Get in started. Mhm. Start off. I'm going over here to Michelle or Proverbs 3 and what's called verse 12. And it says, for whom Yahuwah loves, he reproves, he corrects, he chastens, as a father, the son whom he delights. I'm going to read the next verse just for my purposes and my benefit. But favored is the man who has found wisdom, and the man who gets understanding, gets comprehension. Let's go to the next corresponding verse. Ebring, Hebrews 12. And what's called verse 5. And it says, and you have forgotten the appeal which speaks to you as to sons. My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahuwah, the chastening of Yahuwah, the correction of Yahuwah, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For whom Yahuwah loves, he disciplines and flogs every son whom he receives. Let's keep rolling. Michelle, or Proverbs 11, it says, a false scale is an abomination to Yahuwah, but a perfect weight is his delight. Now, this is basically like an idiom, or it's a visual, or it's a descriptive verse that gives you a visual of what is being meant. Let's keep going. Wa'ikra, Leviticus 19. Do no unrighteousness in right ruling, in measurements of length, in weight, or measuring liquids. Have right scales, right weights, a right ephah, and a right hand. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mizraim. And you shall guard all my laws, my Torah, and all my right rulings, and do them. I am Yahuwah. So I'm dealing right there with giving a visual of scale and how it's balanced. America has the scale of justice or whatever, and they claim it's balanced, but we know that it's not. But you're dealing with Yah, he wants things balanced. One side should not outweigh the other. One perspective, one vantage point should not outweigh the other. A lot of times we see that that's the case. When you see something being spoken of as per se evil, they neglect other things that are evil. They pinpoint on that and not on the other. I kind of want to focus on sexual immorality because we're selective in how we want to deal with sexual immorality. Some things we see as more offensive than others. Some things we speak on more than others. And it's like they're all sin. Objectively, with me, I can say I myself have been a person who lived a lascivious life in my youth. So I can't look at my youth and have a high ground in that. No, I did not have homosexuality or bestiality in my background, but the other things were just as bad. And so I get it that my mind at a time said, okay, that's worse, but they're all sexual immorality. If you were to lay with someone that's married and they're not your bride, that's out of order. That's sexual immorality. If you're to lay with your relative, that's sexual immorality. That's not right. Both are evil, both are wicked, but people are more forgiving of one over the other. When I was a young man, I would see inside what we call the church homosexual ministers or musicians. It was nothing, uncommon to see that for me. I didn't agree with it. Like, okay, that position is ministry, that spirit is being pushed out. And you would see it reflected in the congregation. As I got older, I moved away from stuff like that, but then I would see musicians that would have a heavy hand in sleeping with a lot of members in the choir and in the congregation. So that spirit was prevalent in that congregation. And it seemed that if one was more acceptable than the other, one would not get called out. I myself believe truly that both should be called out. And that if ministry goes forth, it should not be selective on not wanting to hurt someone's feelings. If thus says Yahuwah, it should be thus says Yahuwah, regardless to who feelings get hurt. You can't be walking on eggshells in every situation. You have to bring forth the word of Yah. And in that, I want to give some examples and stuff, and I'm going to try to be balanced. I'm going to deal with sexual immorality as well as homosexuality. So I know that that probably going to tune off or turn off a lot of folks, but this is something that I'm speaking on today because in this world, that lifestyle is now prevalent. You can't watch TV without seeing it. You can't watch movie without seeing it. And it does not mean because you're talking on it that you hate the people. I have relatives that have that lifestyle. I still love them, but it's not love to me if I don't tell them that they have an opportunity to turn back to Yah. The lifestyle that they're living is contrary to his way of being and thought, and they turn back. Let that lifestyle go and turn back. When I was younger and doing a lot of the whoremongering and stuff like that I was doing, I needed to turn back. I don't live that way now, but I don't stay. or stand on a high ground to say that I'm better than any because he gave me the opportunity and the time. He allowed me the grace to correct my veering left and caused me to come back to the right. And I'm not really focusing on directions when I say that. That's symbolism again. I was going the wrong direction and I was able to turn back towards his direction. So let's keep on. I want to get back to the text. I don't want to do the bulk of the talking and have it focused on my words, but I talked about scales. Michelle, Proverbs 20. It says here on what's called verse 23, differing weights are an abomination to Yahuwah, and a false scale is not good. Let's go over here to Wa'ikra, Leviticus 18. Just going to do a little reading here. Says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel. This is Yah giving direction. A lot of times when you speak the law or talk about the law, they say it's Moses' law. But who is giving this to him? Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not do as they do in the land of Mizraim, where you dwelt, and do not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. And do not walk in their laws. Do not do my right rulings and guard, shamar, my laws, to walk in them. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And you shall guard my laws and my right rulings, which a man does and lives by them. I am Yahuwah. So this is not a selective thing. This is not for one group or another. This is for all those that follow Yah. It's not selective. You know, if your congregation is housing people that are not walking towards this, you need to be pointing them towards this. This is your responsibility if you're shepherding some. You know I hear a lot of people talk about my congregation. It's not your congregation. They say, well, you don't have a congregation. I never am supposed to have a congregation. It's Yah's congregation. But keep going. No one is to approach anyone of his own flesh. Say it again. No one is to approach anyone of his own flesh. One more time. No one is to approach anyone of his own flesh. My children are of my own flesh. My mother is of my own flesh. My cousins, my auntie, of my own flesh. To uncover his nakedness. This don't mean just take off your clothes. This is a level of intimacy is going forth. I am Yahuwah. The nakedness of your father or the nakedness of your mother you do not uncover. Come on. What is that? What is that? To have sex with your father or your mother is what it's speaking of. To have sex with your father's wife or his woman, even if it's not your mother, you're uncovering your father's nakedness. This is an idiom. It's not talking about just nudeness. It's talking about intimacy. She is your mother. Do not uncover her nakedness. Notice this is the first and hardest one to say it. And I want to say that this is something I want you to remember because I'm going to go back and deal with this, something to deal with this. All right. The nakedness of your father's wife, you do not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. Notice It is your father's nakedness. That woman, Reuben slept with his father's, one of his women, one of his brother's mother. He uncovered his father's neck. But anyway, the nakedness of your sister, the daughter of your father, or the daughter of your mother, whether born at home or elsewhere, their nakedness you do not uncover. So your parents' other children, your siblings, regardless if you was raised together. I was raised by my mother. I didn't really know my father's children until I became an adult. My oldest sister is deceased now. I met her when I was in the 10th grade. You might as well say I was over 16. I was basically an adult. She grew up in the same neighborhood, and it was a very clear thing that I should have known her before then, but I didn't meet her until that time. And we had grown up in the same neighborhood. We could have easily had intimacy with each other, not really, because she wouldn't have been interested in somebody like me anyway, but still, the possibility. The nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you do not uncover, for theirs is your own nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, brought forth by your father, she is your sister. You do not uncover her nakedness. So, male or female, the nakedness of your father's sister you do not uncover, she is your father's flesh. The nakedness of your mother's sister you do not uncover, for she is your mother's flesh. The nakedness of your father's brother you do not uncover. You do not approach his wife, she is your aunt. The nakedness of your daughter-in-law you do not uncover. She is your son's wife. You do not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of your brother's wife you do not uncover. It is your brother's nakedness. The nakedness of a woman and her daughter you do not uncover. If you have the mother, what are you doing with her daughter? If you have the daughter, what are you doing with her mother? It's out of order, causes problems. Nor do you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. You're gonna play the generations game. I'm gonna get both the Nah, don't do that. And do not take a woman as a rival to her sister to uncover her nakedness while the other is alive. And do not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness in her monthly separation of uncleanliness. So that sex and during the period stuff is not to be done. Is immoral. And do not have intercourse with the wife of your neighbor to defile yourself with her. In Israel, your neighbor would be your kinman. Still, you shouldn't be with somebody else's wife anyway. It's against the law. It's against Torah. And do not give any of your offspring to pass through Melech, and do not profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. And do not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. Now, I'm gonna do something real quick because we need to look at that male because I had a discussion with somebody and they tried to make it seem as if that male there in that situation is a child and not an adult. It's not, it's not talking about, just male on male. It's specific male. And I'm like, I believe that person is doing too much. But I'm gonna look that up real quick. Right here with you there, I'm like, shoot, why not? Why not? Let's look that up. All right. Let's see, because that's supposed to be mankind, I think. It's not supposed to be just man. So Let's look. Leviticus 18:22. Let's look. Yep, 18:22. And let's see. You seeing me search. I don't want no co-pilot. But what I do want is a Bible Hub. Bible Hub, nope. Let me see. Uh, let me see. If I go to Bible Hub, Hebrew, and it says male, and that's Zakar. Let's see what that says. He is created male and female. So it's just talking about a male, mankind. It's not talking about a child. It's not talking about an age range. It's talking about male in general. So that's the Hebrew word, zakar. Zakar. It's not debatable. Let me go back to where I was. Okay. All right. And do not lie with a male as with a woman. Not just talking about child, male, all in general, as with the woman. It is an abomination. So yes, this, love who you want, be free. You know, you're okay to love who you love. Or, no, and do not lie with a male as with a woman. This is not Moses. This is Yahuwah speaking to Moses. It is an abomination. And do not have intercourse with any beast. Another abomination, to defile yourself with it. And a woman does not stand before a beast to mate with it. It is perversion. Do not defile yourself with all these, for by all these the nations are defiled, which I am driving out before you. So this nation we're in, that is something that is lawful, but not to Yah. But do we hate these people? No. But in loving them, biblical love is chastening or correction. If you're just appeasing them, you don't love them. I'm not telling you to beat anyone. I'm not telling you to harm them. But you got to tell them the truth if you call yourself loving them. And you cannot walk on eggshells as far as I'm not going to preach on this. I'm not going to teach on this. If Yah has directed you to teach on this, you better. Thus the land became defiled. Therefore I punished it for its crookedness, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. But you shall guard my Torah, my laws, and my right rulings, and not do any of these abominations. Come on, these things are happening in congregations. So I ain't telling you to just put the people out without first speaking to them. But this is some type of lifestyle that you cannot allow, not just the homosexual aspect. Any if they're sleeping, having incest, let's talk to them. I don't agree with pedophilia at all because in that you have a child as a victim. I don't believe in any type of thing where a man is harming a woman or a woman harming a man, because then there are victims. A lot of this love who you love type situations, there's no victim in it. It's a choice by both people. So I'm more upset with those that's causing victims, but still, Yah's balance says this has to be addressed. You cannot ignore it. But you shall guard my laws and my right rulings. You should shamar. You should guard. You gotta speak up and do and not do any of these abominations. The native nor stranger who sojourns among you. You can't allow this to be and not speak up. If you do, you are a problem. You're not functioning and operating under the authority of Yah. You are making yourself the authority. And that's a problem. Because the men of the land who were before you have done all these abominations, and thus the land became defiled. So let not the land vomit you out for defiling it, as it vomited out the nations that were before you. For whoever does any of these abominations, those beings who do them shall be cut off from among their people. Are they cut off permanently? I'm not saying that. Again, I was not cut off permanently. I was able to be restored, but I had to turn from my old ways. Yes, that's many years back. But these people now, if they're living this lifestyle, you have to put it before them and give them opportunity to turn away from it. But you cannot keep allowing it to happen in the place that you claim is Yah's. For whoever does any of these abominations, those beings who do them shall be cut off from among their people. And you shall guard my charge, so as not to do any of these abominable laws which were done before you, so as not to defile yourselves by them. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Come on. Gotta stop playing with this stuff. Gotta preach the truth. Can't make people comfortable in their wrongdoings. I look, I understand now why I don't have many friends in a lot of areas because people view me as judgmental and I don't have to say a word because I have put out certain standards that is like, no, that's unacceptable. That people don't even, I don't have to say a word. If they're living in that way, they don't even come around me. Not as if I'm somebody special. I'm not. I live those ways, but they're convicted. I don't have to say a word a lot of times. And still, I've shown love. I've shown love to close relatives that have lived those lifestyles. But again, I still allow them to know Yah will forgive you. All you have to do is turn from that. Let me keep going. Sharing my screen back. All right. Let's go to another narrative, another story. This story right here, many have, they've done some work on this thing and try to make it be something, and they don't take in the cues. Bereshit, or Genesis 9, verse 20, it says, And Noah, a man of the soil, began and planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. So he was naked. He was uncovered for real. It was visibly uncovered. But check it out. And Ham, the ark was only 8 people on there. It does not say anything about them having children on this ark. Nothing. It's Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives. So Ham, and Ham, the father of Canaan. Why is it mentioning Canaan when no children had been born? Saw the nakedness of his father. Remember, we just talked about the law of uncovering nakedness. Did he see his father? So many teach and say that he saw his father naked, his actual father. And some even teach that he touched his father. Then Ham did all of this. Why is it speaking of Canaan then? And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his brothers outside. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it on both of their shoulders and went backward and covered. Notice it didn't say covered their father, it covered the nakedness of their father. Remember, it speaks in that law, the laws that I was running out, that the wife is the nakedness of the father. and covered the nakedness of their father, but their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. They say, you're adding to it. You're adding. But there's a key. Keep going. And Noah awoke from his wine, and he knew what his younger son had done to him. His younger son done something to him, but now listen to what the father said. And he said, cursed is Canaan. Canaan wasn't there. Why is he cursed? And Ham had more children than just Canaan. Why specifically is Canaan cursed? Let him become a servant to his brothers. Canaan had brothers. Remember Mizraim, which you get Egypt from. Huh? What about Cush, who you get Ethiopia from? Those are his bro. Come on. Why is Canaan cursed here? Is Canaan the product of a mishap of Ham uncovering his father's nakedness? Is that why he's mentioned? People say, oh, no, that's not what it's saying. But the Bible is full of Hebrew idioms, and uncovering nakedness includes a son laying with the wife of his father. And he said, cursed is Canaan, let him become a servant of servants to his brothers. And he said, favored be Yahuwah, the Elohim of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant. Let Elohim enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan, ain't speaking about him, become his servant. Why is it focusing on Canaan when Ham is the one that did the act? Come on. They said, what you're adding again. There are specific clues there that should not be ignored. Let's keep going. So that was an act of, incest or, so that's one incest. Let's deal with one homosexual situation. Bereshit, Genesis 19. I'm going to give some prequel to this. So Yah come to Abraham or Abram and tells him what he's going to do for him. But then he also said, I got something else, but should I share it with him or not? And so he planned on getting rid of Sodom and Gomorrah. So he sent the two messengers that was with him, and he stayed there back talking with Abraham. And Abraham even tried to bargain and was like, well, what? What if it's righteous men there? Why would you do that? Because he knew Lot was there. So he went from 50, he went from a larger number down to a little number. And of course, the lower number was not even met. So the men went there. So let's go ahead. Let's get back to the reading. Let's read. All right. Bereshit, Genesis 19. And the two messengers came to Siddim, in the evening. And Lot was sitting in the gate of Siddim. And when Lot saw them, he rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground, showing them hospitality. This is another issue that, a lot of people have said that, the issue with Sodom and Gomorrah was not the homosexuality, but their lack of hospitality. Because according to Torah, even though Torah was not something we, in the story, in the narrative yet, even Abraham knew the Torah. He knew the instructions of Yah. There are certain ways you're supposed to greet guests or people in your area. But anyway, and he said, look, please, my master, please turn in to your servant's house and spend the night, and wash your feet, and rise early, and go your way. And they said, no, but let us spend the night in the open square. Lot knew something, but he urged them strongly, and they turned in to him and came into his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread. Was it unleavened bread? Let me stop. And they ate. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every part surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us and let us know them. They wanted to have intimacy with these men. Men wanted to have intimacy with men, not men with children, men with men. So Lot went out to them through the doorway and shut the door behind him and said, please, my brothers, do not do evil. Look, please, I have two daughters who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out to you and do to them as you wish. Have sex with these men, have sex with these women. I'm going to give up my daughters that have not known a man. Don't mess with these men. Only do no deed to these men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. They're my guests. But they said, stand back. And they said, this one came in to sojourn, and should he always judge? Judge. Judgment has something to do with righteousness. He's standing in righteousness with them, and they ain't liking it. They're like, you self-righteous. Let us have them. It says, now we are going to treat you worse than them. They're going to try to lay with him too. So they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, and they wearied themselves to find the door. They were trying to have homosexual acts forcefully. And the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here, a son-in-law and your sons and your daughters and whoever you have in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great before the face of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke to his son-in-laws, who had married his daughters, and said, get up, get up, get out, get up, get out of this place, for Yahuwah is going to destroy the city. But to his son-in-law, he seemed to be one joking. They didn't take him serious. And when morning dawned, morning came after the evening, the messenger urged Lot to hurry, saying, get up, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he loitered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his two daughters, Yahuwah having compassion on him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. And it came to be when they had brought them outside that he said, escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. And Lot said to them, oh no, Yahuwah. Look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your loving commitment, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die. Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there, and is it not a small matter? And let my life be saved. And he said to him, look, I have favored you concerning this matter also, without overthrowing the city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there. So the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen up upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar, and Yahuwah rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Amorah. And Yahuwah from okay, and Yahuwah rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Amorah from Yahuwah out of the heavens. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, which and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a post of salt. And Abraham arose early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before Yahuwah. And he looked toward Sodom and Amorah and toward all the land of the plain. And he looked and saw the smoke in the land which went up like smoke of a furnace. Thus it came to be when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain that Elohim remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains, and his two daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar, and he and his two daughters dwelt in a cave. Now remember, already one homosexuality. I'd already dealt with one incest or, so sexual immorality. So I'm not just focusing on homosexuality. So just this was the first homosexuality, but let's keep going. And the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man on earth to come in to us, as is the way of all the earth. There's no man to have sex with us and bring forth children. Come, let us make our father drink wine and lie with him. They uncovered their father's nakedness, so that we preserve the seed of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. And it came to be on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, see, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight as well, and you go in and lie with him, so that we keep the seed of our father. They uncovered his nakedness another time. So they made their father drink wine that night as well. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he was not aware of it when she lay down and when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. And the firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. If you know your Bible, you know Moab has always been a trouble to the descendants of Abraham. Moab would be the son of Lot, who is Abraham's nephew. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. Remember the Ammonites, always a problem to Israel as well. And Ben-Ami was the son of Lot. So these two nations that of people came from Lot that were always a stumbling block or a trouble towards Israel. All right. So I'm at two with the incest and one with homosexuality. So let's finish this off. Shaphatim, Judges 19. And it came to be in those days when there was no sovereign in Israel, that there was a certain Levite sojourning on the further side of the mountains of Ephraim, and he took for himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Yehuda. A concubine. I'm going to leave that alone. Keep going. And his concubine committed whoring. Defiling herself. Against him and went away. But was she having sex? Or she just being disobedient to his covering? Interesting though, anyway. And his concubine committed whoring against him and went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Yehuda, and was there 4 new moons, 4 months of days. And her husband arose and went after her to speak to her heart and bring her back, having his servant and a couple of donkeys with him. And she brought him into her father's house, and the father of the young woman saw him, and he was glad to meet him. And as the father-in-law, the young woman's father, took hold of him and dwelt with them 3 days. And they ate and drank and spent the nights there. And it came to be on the fourth day that they arose early in the morning and prepared to leave. But the young woman's father said to his son-in-law, so it's labeling her like she was a concubine, like a wife, refresh your heart with a piece of bread, and afterward go your way. So they sat down, and the two of them ate and drank together. And the young woman's father said to the man, please agree to stay all night and let your heart be glad. And when the man arose to go, his father-in-law urged him, so he spent the night there again. And he arose early in the morning on the fifth day to go. But the young woman's father said, please refresh your heart. So they delayed until afternoon, and both of them ate. And the man arose to go, he and his concubine and his servant. But the father-in-law, the young woman's father, said to him, see, the day is now drawing toward evening. Please spend the night. See, the day is coming. The day is coming after the evening. Anyway, the day is coming to an end. Stay here and let your heart be glad, and you shall rise early tomorrow. Early tomorrow. If evening is the beginning of anyway, for your journey, and you shall go to your tent. But the man would not stay that night, and he arose and left, and came to a place opposite Jebus, that is Jerusalem. And with him were the two saddled donkeys, and his concubine with him. They were near Jebus, and the day was far spent. And the servant said to his master, come, please, and let us turn aside into the city of the Jebusites and spend the night. And his master said to him, let us not turn aside here into a city of foreigners who are not of the children of Israel, but we shall pass over to Geba. So not staying where the strangers were, but going to their own kinsmen. And he said to his servant, come, let us draw near to one of these places and spend the night in Geba or in Ramah, where their kinsmen were. And they passed over and went their way, and the sun went down on them near Geba, which belongs to Benjamin. And they turned off there to go in to spend the night in Geba. So he went in, and he sat down in the open square of the city, for no one would take them into his house to spend the night. Remember, it's him. He had a male servant, his concubine, and their animals or whatever. But see, the old man came in from his work in the field of evening at evening, who also was from the mountains of Ephraim, and he was sojourning in Geba, whereas the men of the place were Benjamites. And when he lifted up his eyes, he saw the traveler in the open square of the city. He offered hospitality. And the old man said, where are you going, and where do you come from? And he said to him, we are passing over from Bethlehem in Yehuda to the other side of the mountain of Ephraim. This is a Levite. Levites are supposed to be able to go to any Hebraic city and be able to gain cover, or, we're supposed to cover them because they don't have an inheritance. So just check it out. I am from there, and I went to Bethlehem in Yehuda, and I am going to the house of Yahuwah, but there is no one taking me into his house. No one being showing hospitality. Yet there is both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for myself, and for your female servant, and for your young man who is with your servant. There is no lack of any matter. And the old man said, peace be with you. However, let all your needs be on me. Only do not spend the night in the open square. He got his own provision, but this other man said, "Come on, nah, your needs will be on me. Come, just don't be here." And he brought him into the house and gave fodder to the donkeys, and they washed their feet and ate and drank. They were making their heart glad, and see, men of the city, sons of Yael, surrounded the house, beating on the door. Sounds familiar to the Lot situation to me. And they spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, "Bring out the man who came to your house so that we know him." They ain't asking about the woman. They ain't asking about sir. Bring out the man. They want the priest so that we know him. They wanted to have intimacy with the Levite. But the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brothers, I beg you, do no evil. Since this man has come into my house, do not do this folly. Look, here's my maiden daughter." Again, he offers all his daughter, one daughter, maiden daughter, and the man's concubine, another woman. Still trying to give him his daughter and the man's concubine. Let me bring them out now and humble them, be with them, know them, and do with them what is good in your eyes, but do not do such a foolish matter to this man. Don't do this Levite like that. But the men would not listen to him. So the man took hold of his concubine and brought her out to them. He threw her out there, and they knew her and rolled themselves on her all night until morning, all the way to the next day, and let her go when the day began to break. Morning, when the day began to break. And morning appeared, and the woman came back and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was till it was light. At daybreak, it's still dawn, it's still dark, getting light. And she came humbled, hurt, harmed, because they done laid with her, rode with her all night, all the men. And her master rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way, and saw his concubine fallen at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, "Rise up and let us go." But there was no answer. Then he took her on a donkey, and the man rose and went to his place. They raped her, had sex with her to death, and came into his house and took a knife, then took hold of his concubine and cut her limb by limb. She was deceased already, into 12 pieces, and sent her throughout all the borders of Israel. And it came to be that all who saw it, there has never been and there has not been seen the like of this from the day of that the children of Israel came up from the land of Mizraim until this day. Set your heart on it, take counsel, and speak up. So I offered two situations for both scenarios. So I want to offer balance. None of it is okay. The homosexual acts, not okay. People say, well, those were forced upon situations that they were trying to have. We're talking about people that are willingly doing it. In the law, I read, says man is not supposed to lay with man. Woman ain't supposed to lay with woman. It's the law. Just like you're not supposed to have incest, you're not supposed to uncover nakedness. Dealt with both sides so to show that in the book is there speaking on it. People say, "Oh, well, it's not in the New Testament. I could show something, but I want to stay balanced." There's something in the New Testament that tells you that men will have infections for men. It's not okay. But I'm not telling you to beat, harm, or nothing. But you got to come with righteous judgment and tell the truth. Thus says Yahuwah on this matter. Those musicians that I knew that were sleeping with people in the choir and stuff like that, that need to be called out and stopped. Same way, homosexual, stop. Men that were having relationship with other man's wife need to be stopped. If anyone is messing with children, needs to be stopped. You got to at least put it out there and let it be known that it's wrong. Give opportunity for them to turn away from it. But some won't even teach on it, won't even speak on it because they're walking on eggshells and don't want to offend anybody. And nowadays, it's even finna get to the point where they may even try to make laws against these things. But these things are not the will of Yahuwah. And we say over and over, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy will be done on earth as is in heaven. On earth as is in heaven. Thy kingdom come, thy will be. What is his will? His instructions are the Torah. It's not Moses' Torah, it's Yah's Torah. People say, well, Yahusha fulfilled that. But he also said he didn't remove not a jot or a tittle. Fulfilled. That was the goal of it. I did it in order for us to have his example so we can do it. Not so we can ignore it and say, oh, I ain't got to do it. He did it. You know, that whole, he paid it all. No, you got to endure to the end. You need to do what you need to do for your life as well. He gave you an example. Follow that example. Not say, oh, he did it, so I don't have to do it. That's bullcrap. Abba Yah, I thank you for this Shabbat. May someone have became open to hear you from this. I desire more edification as well. Being your messenger, your vessel, let your will be done on earth as is in the Shamayim. And I thank you that you allowed me to step forth to speak to your congregation, not my own. This is about your will being done, not my will being done. I have no enemies or, with people with that lifestyle. I have many that I love, but I would be doing them a disservice if I didn't tell them your will towards that. So I thank you for the Shabbat. This is Shanquil Yah, One Vision Ministry. Shanquilla Carter, Echad Chazan Sheriff. Shabbat Shalom, Yada Yahuwah.